summer of 1970, many heard this sound for the very first time. And when this new instrument was later revealed in concert, it would make the same impression. It was massive, just like it sounded.
Called the Moog synthesizer. There are oscillators which produce the sound, filters, amplifiers, and envelope generators which shape it. You create your sound simply by plugging into the right holes.
Wow. Dude, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Nice.
Yes, yes, yes!
But for the exception of a few early experiments, like Wendy Carlos's album Switched on Bach, the Moog Modular did not take off in popularity until the early 70s. Japanese musician Sao Tomita featured his modular in creating beautifully layered interpretations of Western classical music. But for many, Moog didn't really come into a sound of its own until three young men in West Berlin acquired theirs in 1971, the one originally purchased by the Rolling Stones. The group Tangerine Dream were early practitioners of what became to be known as the Berlin School of Electronic Music. Realizing the size, cost, and complexity of the modular systems was prohibitive to most musicians, Moog introduced in 1971 the Model D synthesizer, better known as the Mini Moog. Compact and affordable, this was to become the world's first popular synthesizer, an onstage staple of progressive rock and fusion acts of the 70s. Original Model Ds are today still highly valued, although its hardwired design greatly diminishes the flexibility capable of its modular-based predecessors. The 1980s introduced a literal explosion of synthesizer music, with some acts abandoning traditional non-electronic instruments altogether. It was during this time musical instrument manufacturers began turning away from traditional analog and focusing on what was then seen as the forward-thinking and more affordable solution of fully digital and programmable electronic instruments. By the 1990s, much of the early analog equipment cast off as being outdated was now being picked up by musicians and DJs from the new techno and rave scenes. This created a second-hand market for analog instruments, while at the same time reintroducing these classic sounds to new ears. It was this renewed interest that finally drove Moog and other manufacturers to begin reissuing their older analog models. In 2014, Moog celebrated its 50th anniversary by unveiling the first of its modular reissues, an exact replica of Keith Emerson's massive custom modular system.
I hold down the A,
Go to number 11.
It was this remark made during Keith's question and answer session that sparked the inspiration for creating the first Frobe Mini Modular.
So it's got 3 oscillators.
It seemed hard to believe in modern terms, but it had been simply 3 oscillators which had created all that huge sound we had had back in the 70s.
You can mess around with them a little bit.
A question was then posed. What then is the minimum set of modules needed to create the flexibility, control, and most importantly, the awesome sound of a monster-sized Moog Modular such as this? When examined closely, one finds that the majority of modules have little to no direct effect on the system's resulting sound. For example, the bottom cabinet is made up almost entirely of preset modules that were custom-made to have saved configurations called up during live performance. The topmost cabinet, being too high to reach for any practical purposes, was reserved for display only in various dummy modules, such as a video monitor, an album graphic and lighting displays, not to mention a military weapons switch. The lower panel row is made up of 4 mixers, which could seem a tad excessive for a system having only 3 oscillators. The Frobe provides a similar 4-channel mixer in a single compact panel. The second expansion cabinet contains 2 large sequencers and their associated modules. In the Frobe synthesizer, these are replaced with a 2-channel CV memory module that takes the space of only a single panel. This leaves us with just 2 cabinets where much of the essential sound architecture is actually being created. The aforementioned 3 oscillators and the respective driver modules are on the Frobe compressed into 3 single panels with all the control, flexibility, and sound of the originals. 2 low-frequency oscillators are included as well. Random voltage multiplers, a low-pass filter, reverb, ring modulation are panels that are all built into the Frobe using the respective single and half panels to save space. Single panels are also provided for 2 voltage control amplifiers as well as 2 envelope generators. In the Frobe, a robust sample and hold module with integrated noise and random voltage generation is included in a single panel space. The remaining modules are mostly duplicates and rarely used. On the top left are some sets of obsolete oscillators and the drivers that were not plugged in since being replaced. And finally, here is a representation of what all this paring down to the essentials has given birth to. The Frobe Mini Modular synthesizer. Seen here side by side, one can easily see the implications for live performance, let alone the cost factor. But perhaps more importantly than all this is the question, how does it sound? And to address this, we believe the Frobe speaks best for itself.